Welcome to my tutorial for Ninja Gaiden 2 for the NES. One of my favorite games on the NES along with the first Ninja Gaiden. The third one I only beat the Japanese version, which gives you unlimited continues, but I'd never actually memorized and learned the American version since you only have a certain amount of continues to beat that one. So I would like to revisit it at some point and actually, practice the game with save and load states and then go through it legit, which is what I usually do with those types of games. And a lot of these old games, I practice heavily with save and load states as needed. But, yeah, this game gives you unlimited continues, so, you at least don't have to worry about that. I mean, if you keep playing, you will make more and more progress. But some of the hardest parts are the bosses, the final bosses. Mainly, in this game, it's mainly the first form of the final boss that I found to be the hardest. That'll probably be one of the bigger, roadblocks for a lot of players. The game is more forgiving, though, than the first one. The first one sends you way back if you die just one time on one of the final boss forms. You get sent, way, way back. It's an unnecessary punishment. The first one's a little bit notorious for doing that. The second one, you don't get sent back too far if you lose a life. You might get sent back like a section, but if you lose all your lives on one of the final boss forms, then you'll just get sent back as normal to redo the last series of sections. You don't get overly punished. So, that's one good thing. For this playthrough, this is going to be a very rough tutorial, meaning I kind of threw this together relatively quick. I did most of this gameplay in about 2 hours. It may have taken me 3 hours to 3.5 because I had to redo. Maybe it was 2.5 hours, but then I had to replay the game up till near the end of the game to get the footage back because I lost footage when my recording. I noticed the section of my recording was missing. So since there's no stage select, I couldn't just go back and do the section I was missing. I had to redo the entire game up to 7.2 or something like that. So, that did cost me at least another 50 minutes or something, I estimate. But I'd say maybe it took me somewhere 3 hours, 3.5 hours to do the whole thing, because I had to redo it. But it was relatively quick. I mean, I wasn't. I was using save and load states, so I didn't have to deal with some of the penalties of death as far as being sent back as far. I would always redo a section in its entirety. I didn't use save and load states in the middle of a section, but I would make save states at the beginning of a lot of the sections, so that if I died, I could just start back at the section. So it was just a time-saving, tactic. And it means that the playthrough isn't going to be as refined as if I had to do it, the way I did it originally, which was just, dealing with all the punishments of being sent back and all that. But since this is a game I already beat, I afforded myself some leniency. I've been doing tutorials that way now. Recently, I've been putting out a few of them where I use save and load states to speed up the process, starting back at checkpoints that aren't as far back, basically. So, yeah, but it did end up getting a decent amount. It got a little bit more refined since I had to replay all the way up to 7.2 again. So I did that the next day, so I still kind of remembered what I had done the day before. So it's definitely more refined than when I the first video I put together before I lost the footage. But yeah, I didn't redo bosses or anything like I did in the Castlevania tutorial that I did for NES, where I did the Grim Reaper with no damage. I didn't try to do anything fancy like that. That was fun, but I don't really like, the hit detection in this game. I find it to be kind of shitty at times, even though I love this game. But a lot of times you'll see my sword goes right through guys. I mean, it's touching them and it doesn't even count as a hit, especially on some of the bosses. They're very confusing of how to land the hits consistently, which is something I don't like. I like when the game, I like a game that has clean hit detection. But it's still, it's a great game, but you just have to learn how to deal with some of its imperfections. But I didn't want to spend the time to really master some of the bosses, because some of those fights I find to be kind of shitty with the, like I said, the hit detection. It's more of a pain in the ass than it's worth to me, But yeah, a lot of this game, I mean, one of the main things I would basically be able to explain, aside from a few boss tricks, like for this boss, every time you run up the wall and get to a certain height, he will jump down like that. So keep that in mind. If you do it fast enough, you can keep running up the wall and he won't have a chance to release the spiders, because he'll always jump down when you get to a certain height. See? You get up here, boom, he jumps down. So if you can trigger him to keep doing that, he will throw them sometimes at the bottom, but you can get him in a pretty good loop like that. So keep that in mind. That is how you spur him to jump back down again. The hard part, well, the only tricky part, it's not really that hard, but the tricky part is that the wind currents will blow you in a direction. So, it can blow you into the boss and mess you up. So that's a problem. And with the wind currents in the actual level itself, obviously you do not want to, you want to wait for the wind current to either be blowing to the right so you can jump off to the right and get a farther jump, or neutral where the snowflakes are just dropping straight down. The snowflakes, the way they're facing, shows you what direction the wind is blowing. You don't want to jump just before it's about to change to a left current. It'll blow you in the pit and you'll die. So, always keep that in mind for the level itself. The first boss, there was nothing to explain. You just pretty much just stab them and keep a little distance. For this part, you can kind of memorize the spacing without the light, so you don't need to wait for the level to light up once you get used to it. But like I said, I hadn't played it a ton, so I didn't have it like really memorized at this point. But some parts I would just run through because I could kind of visualize. You can also kind of see where the shadows are, even when it's dark. There's black lines where the shadows are, so you can kind of see. You can see some of it without even using a light. But yeah, for that boss, that's all you really got to do. And the general idea of this game and this series is a lot of times is to just don't worry about taking damage so much. Just worry about always be thinking ahead of where you're going to get knocked to when you get hit. Because the knockback is the biggest problem in this game. Most of the time you'll probably die by getting knocked in the pits, not taking too much damage on an enemy. Unless it's a boss or something like that, but the regular enemies probably won't usually kill you by hitting you a lot. It will happen sometimes probably, but I think most people are probably going to die most of the time from getting knocked in the pits. That's what this game tries to do constantly, is knock you into holes. With a shitload of enemies that respawn pretty much instantly. So, the idea is not so much on minimizing damage, I would say. The idea is to be prepared when you get hit. Have it planned ahead of what direction you're going to get knocked into, so you can get knocked into the next platform, or you want to keep moving. You don't really want to stop in this game, so try to keep your rhythm and your movement going so you can bounce into the needed areas. You don't want to be at the edge of a platform if you're about to get hit, because then you'll probably get knocked in a hole. So sometimes you want to be on the middle of a platform or on the opposite edge of the platform so that you don't get knocked into the hole. And that just takes getting used to the how the damage works of getting knocked back. But that's really a big part of the game, is keeping that flow going. But yeah, I mean, this game is a lot harder than the first game, aside from the one of the final bosses is not as hard as the one in the second form in the first game. So I mean, I guess that part's easier. But yeah, for this, just knock this guy down, and you can get him into this rhythm here, especially if you have a shadow. And you can just keep stabbing him like that. You may get knocked out of it occasionally, but it's very easy to get. I found it very easy to get him into that pattern. So as long as you do that, I mean, it should be pretty easy. Eventually, you end up edging and walking into him, and it can mess it up. But you can probably keep it going until he dies if you're good enough at doing that pattern. But yeah. So, and the other thing that makes this game harder than Ninja Gaiden 1 in some ways is the levels are much harder. But Ninja Gaiden 1 gave me more trouble because of the fact that it sends you so far back when you lose on one of the boss forms. But all the Ninja Gaiden games on the NES, all 3 games, if you beat a form of the final boss, it stays dead. So even if you get sent back, you'll never have to fight that form again if you already killed it. So that's one form of progress that you do have if you keep dying. As long as you can take out a form, you'll be making progress. This game is very unforgiving, though, in that when you get to one of the boss forms, you have to fight it with whatever life you got there with. Ninja Gaiden 1 replenishes your life bar when you first get to a boss form, but in this, you just have to, whatever life that you got there with is what you have on the boss. And you don't get any life replenished between forms either, so it can make it so that you have to make several trips back and forth before you get all the forms killed. And I'll be editing that out, since I edited out deaths. I also edited out having to make, 3 trips back to the bosses to defeat each form, because I didn't beat them all 3 of them in a row. It's especially hard to do that with, a life bar that doesn't replenish at all either. So, especially since I barely beat the first form. But yeah, so that's the basic idea. I figured I'd get this tutorial up, just a basic rough tutorial, because I posted up the first one recently, so I thought it'd be good to get the second one in, because it's a great game, one of my favorites on the system. But it's not it's not the tightest and cleanest game either, but it's a great game. There is a way to get a 1-up apparently on this section 4.2. I don't know if it's in this specific area, because 4.2 has several screens, several sections. But there is a way to get a 1-up and then climb up and down the ladder and then go back into the area again and respawn the 1-up, apparently. I haven't actually done it before, but I read that on GameFAQs. I was just checking to see if there was a stage select code, because I lost my recording footage and I wanted to just go back and redo the section I needed to do. But that wasn't possible. It'd probably be better if I used multiple slots on the emulator and, made save states on different slots, just in case I lose a recording, but I didn't end up doing that. The bosses are going to be like, this is a very easy boss. All you have to, I didn't even take damage on this, as you'll see. You can get here with no health and still beat it easily. So all I do is jump, stab the boss in the face twice, and then jump back down again and go to the other side. That's it. Just follow this loop you see me doing here. Jump, stab twice, and then go down. Stab twice, go back down. And just loop around like that, just, kind of zigzag around. And it's very easy if you do that. If you have some kind of projectiles, like I had some throwing stars, I could have just stood in that corner and wasted a bunch of its health by throwing stars at it in that corner you spawn in. You can also do that if you have throwing weapons, but you really don't need them for this. It's very easy. I also have a version of this video without the commentary if you just want to hear the sound of the game, but it doesn't show the story since I skipped through all the story. I was just intending this to be a demonstration of the gameplay and beating the game type of thing, but I decided to post a version without the commentary as well. I also edited the ending out on this tutorial version because there's no sense in sitting through the ending, especially with only the sound of my voice. But yeah, there's not going to be too much differently that you're going to have to do at this point. You just have to get used to the flow of each section pretty much and try to, take your hits and bounce into the appropriate areas, because you're going to get hit a lot, most likely, unless you're, if you're already real skilled at the game, then, you won't have to worry about that. But, most people are going to have to kind of just take the hits and just keep moving. This can be a little bit more annoying because, on the ice you do slide around, so you got to take that into account. But it doesn't change the gameplay too much. It just makes it a little bit slower to get a running start. That's the main thing that's annoying about it. But of course, whenever you're on the edge of a wall, and you want to get back up to the top, you hold back, jump, and then forward real fast to cling back onto the wall, which is, something that a lot of players already know, but if you don't know how I'm doing that, it's not the easiest thing to explain, but you basically want to jump away from the wall and then immediately be holding right so that you cling back on. And you got to do it very fast, repeatedly. Just keep doing that, and you can climb up a wall that way. In this game, you can actually climb the wall just by pressing up or down on the wall. You can't do that in the first game, but you still have to do that that wall jumping type of thing where you jump out and then back to the wall again real fast. You have to do that on the top edge of the walls. So you still have to know how to do that to some degree. This boss is a pain in the ass. I pretty much just exchange hits with him. Like, I don't have a good strategy for what I did here. I try to keep just enough distance away from him, about a sword's length distance, and just jump up and stab him. And I just take the hits from those little orbs most of the time. And I don't think I had full life when I got to him, so I was still able to beat him this way. It's not going to be the most consistent method, that's for sure. It's not going to really be a good method. So there's really not much that I can explain about this because it wasn't refined at all, as you can see. It was just barely surviving. That's why I say this is a rough tutorial, because there's a lot of parts that, could be done much, much better. See, I only had one piece of health, so that was barely surviving. I'm sure there's a better way to play that guy. But yeah, it's probably not going to be, like I said, this is not going to be a super helpful tutorial, but I think you'll get the idea. There's a 1-up somewhere around there. Actually, that was the scroll. I think there's a 1-up behind that castle wall, hidden somewhere. If you throw some of that diagonal fire magic upward, I think sometimes you can hit a 1-up and get that to come down. But I don't remember completely. I wasn't really too concerned with getting 1-ups, since I was using the save and load states to start at the sections. I didn't have to worry about it too much. But yeah, pretty much all the levels are really about the rhythm and just getting the rhythm of the level down, You get used to what can hit you, what you have to take out, and you just try to keep moving pretty much. And, eventually you'll get through. This boss is quite easy. It's harder than the one in the first game. The version of this boss in the first game was super fucking easy, but for this, you mainly want to use one of the pillars as cover. Stay in the middle of one of those pillars, because that's where the gargoyle is going to jump up, and he can't go in that middle area. But he can still hit you with those pink things, and part of his body can sometimes kind of squeeze into that safe zone. So be careful with that. But keep it in mind, it's somewhat of a safe zone to stay in the middle of the pillar, and just try to keep stabbing him when you can. But I would say stay on one of the pillars. Don't go too far out. Try to stay within range of it, so you got somewhat of a safe spot, and you can minimize your damage that way. So yeah, pretty damn easy. Not hard if you do that, really. It may take a few tries. It still took me a few tries, but I mean, it's not bad. It's one of the easier bosses. The easiest boss is probably that one in the previous level with the hand in the face. That's well, the first boss is probably the easiest, but still. So yeah, now you're pretty far by this point. This is the final stage of the game. Of course, there's a bunch of sections left, but for these fire parts, it's better to not even try to stab the flames, it seems. Just try to run and jump over them. Every time I try to stab them, my sword just never hits them for whatever reason. I'm not sure if you can destroy them with the sword, or if it's just bad hit detection. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But, yeah, it's better not to even bother with them. Just run past them. Sometimes shit just gets wild, and it's just good to take your hits and just move through, Just try to get bounced in the direction that you need to be bounced in. It's kind of hard. I don't know if you can really control the direction that you get knocked back. I mean, see, I took the wrong path here, so don't do that. it was unclear that I had to go up to that. I mean, you can tell if you look closely that it has little ladder markings, but, you know, it's not that obvious initially. But, yeah, as far as the knockback, I think it has to do with how far, you know, and what direction you are when the enemy hits you or something from the relative to the enemy. I think it has something to do with that, but I'm not even going to try to analyze it too deeply because, you know, I would want to test it because I didn't, honestly, I just played the game. I didn't really test that. But I can tell you that, you know, initially, eventually you will get a feel for what direction you're going to get knocked back into most of the time. So a lot of times you can predict what direction you're going to get knocked back. I mean, it may throw you off occasionally, but once you do get a feel for it. And then that allows you to kind of move fluidly even when you get hit. You're able to bounce into the area you need to bounce to. You know, because you'll be ready. When you get hit, you'll know, yeah, I'm going to bounce onto that wall. So be ready to grab onto a wall so that you save yourself from falling. And then try to continue, you know, with the level. It's always good to kind of have a backup plan, you know, to see things ahead a little bit. To see things a few moves ahead. That way, you know, if I get hit here, I'm going to bounce to this platform. That's the kind of thing you really need to do in this game to play well, I think. And not that this is really good playing, but it's, you know, I think it's a general idea of, you know, how you got to play these games. Unless you're going for a no damage run or something, that's a totally different thing, but, you know, that'd be fucking crazy to do in this game. This game seems like it's pretty much designed for you to take damage all the time and just, you know, figure out where you're going to bounce to when you get hit, pretty much. Because you can take a lot of hits. So that's usually not the issue. So, yeah, coming up is a tricky part. A very annoying part. But, soon, you know, you'll be at one of the bosses soon. There's only about 3 minutes left, so. This is near the end of the game now. Well, you know, actually, I think the tricky part already passed. It was with the machine gun guy when you drop down. That part's a pain in the ass, but you'll get it eventually. This guy is a huge pain in the ass. Initially, you'll see I dodge him and I use my specials. But once my special moves run out, you know, then it's a fucking, you know, it's a fuck fest at that point. But if you have specials, use them all on the boss and do this pattern where, you know, you dodge it like this, go under him. You know, you just watch what I'm doing and try to follow that rhythm. But then he will switch his positioning. Eventually he'll be up in different areas, and then it becomes harder and harder to dodge him. I'm sure there's patterns to all this shit. It's just like I didn't practice this enough, so like I said, I don't have great advice on this. I find the hit detection to be really shitty. Like a lot of times you'll see my sword is in him, and it doesn't even count as a hit. So I really don't understand why that is. I don't know if there's a specific part that you're supposed to hit. See, I barely beat it. But, you know, I guess just be persistent. Like I said, practice this shit with save and load states, these bosses, or any hard parts. You know, any bosses you should practice with save and load states if you think they're going to give you a problem. For this, I just had rapid fire set, and if you have an emulator, even if you don't have a rapid fire controller, you can usually easily set both buttons to rapid fire and just hold down both B and A, and you'll jump and slash continuously. And that's basically all I did here. I just make sure I'm not facing the wrong way at any point. Because sometimes you get turned around. And that's it. I mean, that's kind of a reckless way to do it, but it does work. And as I said, if you die on one of these forms, you'll be sent back to maybe 7-2 or something like that. But so you will have to come back again, but whatever forms you defeat will be dead. But remember that right before you get to these bosses, there's a life bottle that you can stab and pick up. I didn't mention that, but I did get it in the video. But be aware, get that life bottle so you don't come in here with like no health. You know, at least you'll have some health for these fights. For this, you want to take out the head and then the heart. And I play it very sloppily, similar to how I did the second form. I found these forms to be pretty damn easy with just playing recklessly. You know, I didn't really have to. I mean, it comes close, but eventually you can get it by playing like that. You can dodge shit if you want on the last form. You can dodge the fire that comes out and all that. But you know, I ended up going with the sloppy method. But yeah, if you have any questions or if there's any games or tutorials that you'd like to see, let me know, and I'll definitely consider playing them. And thanks for watching.